spoilers for Wakanda Forever.
So, Black Panther. It's been one of the biggest movies that the MCU has ever made, getting $1.34 billion in the box office. So of course the sequel is going to be made, Wakanda Forever. If I had to give a quick rundown of my opinion of the original Black Panther since I watched it recently, Black Panther is a great movie with an amazing cast, amazing score, and most importantly, amazing villain. Killmonger is one of, if not the best villain, except for Thanos obviously, but his backstory motivation, his need to kill every person in his way, is terrifyingly amazing, and it works really well for the story. The score is very vibrant and energetic very often, and it has amazing cast of characters. T'Challa is a great protagonist, and I really enjoyed his bodyguard and his sister. They were both really funny, and they were both great in the action scenes. Claw was also a great side villain.
I made it rain!
I love how completely insane he is, and his robot arm is also really unique and creative. The cast also has some not so good characters, like Black Panther's love interest. She wasn't very interesting, and I feel like they should have developed her more. Unlike a lot of people, I don't believe the climax was bad in any way. In fact, I believe it was the same quality as the rest of the movie. Sure, the CGI looks a bit messy sometimes, but honestly, it's pretty good. So overall, Black Panther was an 8 out of 10, and I highly recommend you watch it. So, I wrote this before Black Panther Wakanda Forever came out, and I just wanted to comment on the trailers. They look stunning. They look really good, but yeah. That's basically what I have to say, basically what everyone else is saying about the trailers. So here's my opinions on the actual Wakanda Forever. First off, I want to cover how they handled Chadwick's passing in this movie. When I heard they were going to make a sequel, I was really concerned because they could have done something really offensive and awful, like using deepfake or recasting him. But the trailer showed otherwise. I think the opening scene of this movie is easily the best in the entire movie, with the Marvel intro especially being done extremely well. Throughout the movie, they almost never show Chadwick, which I appreciate because they could have done something stupid like deepfake or something. But instead, they respect the actor by only showing snippets of him in the movie through occasional flashbacks. I think the way T'Challa was killed off was also done really well, with him dying from an unknown virus, which works in real life and works in universe. T'Challa's influence on Shuri, which is another one of the biggest highlights of the movie, is also really impactful and makes him very important to the overall story without really being there. So overall, I think they handled Chadwick's passing extremely well, which was a huge relief since this was basically my biggest fear going into the movie. The action in this movie was overall pretty good, like the opening car chase having great angles and good cinematography. I really like the general's battle with that sea general from the ocean tribe, with it having some stunning action and showing how powerful the ocean people can be. There were some hiccups like the sea people introduction, which was really rough with how stupid everything looked, because everything is in such like a dark angle. It makes them look so goofy. It's really bad. That opening scene was so bad. I'm not going to talk about the climax yet, since that will be a different section of the video, but yeah. So surprisingly, for a Marvel movie, this one didn't have that much humor. I've expected all Marvel movies now to have a ton of jokes since it's their main part of their formula, but they really changed it up here with a very small amount of jokes. I think it might be because of the main criticism of Love and Thunder being the overused and overplayed jokes, so maybe they switched it up, but at the same time, I think it would really ruin the movie if they had a ton of jokes since they're really covering a serious topic. But the actual humor of the movie really isn't my style, with it mainly being the dialogue and this joke where they made fun of how the general's bald a couple of times.
You can come to Wakanda, conscious or unconscious.
You need to be conscious of the way that you look. Walking around here with that ash on your head.
It just really nudged me the wrong way, because it was a really cheap joke and they never brought him up in any of the other movies. That was really the only problem I had with the humor. Most of it's just okay. It comes from the three's interaction and the Ice Tribe leader, and most of his jokes are okay, but they weren't as good as in the original Black Panther. Some people definitely have issues with the humor, but comedy is subjective, so if a joke doesn't work for you, it probably works for someone else. Namor, the villain of this movie, is a character I have very mixed thoughts on. He's a pretty cool character with a decently good design, and I like how, unlike a lot of MCU villains, he isn't just a blank slate of a bad guy with no personality. He acts like a good guy at the start of the movie. He's a pretty nice person who has good motivations, but has a bad view of the outside world. I think he went from being a nice, good dude to a crazy murder man way too fast, but it's understandable, I guess. My theory is that he was just being nice to Shuri so that he could partner up with Wakanda so he could take over more of the world, but that's just my theory. That could have just been a flaw with the movie. I think the score he uses when he goes evil is really good and probably the best of the movie. On a side note, the score isn't anything to write home about. There's nothing bad, but most of it's good with some exceptions like this moment. His people are okay, but they don't do a good job at really showing their full power, because at the start they show that they could come back to life, but they never play with this concept again. Namor is alright but flawed, which is kind of more than I could ask for knowing the MCU. Another quote-unquote villain in this movie is Killmonger. He isn't really a villain, but he leads Shuri in the wrong path by telling her path from vengeance. I love Killmonger, as I said before, but my favorite part about him was he was willing to murder anyone just to reach his goal. And I think they made him a bit more understanding in here, which is okay, but like, I don't really care. One of my biggest issues with this movie, however, is the CIA side plot. This movie is nearly 3 hours long, and the CIA side plot is a real waste of time in the story overall. I'm glad they brought back Everett Ross for this new movie, but it's also something that was completely unnecessary. I would have liked it a lot more if they made him an actual part of the story. Maybe he could like help the Queen and fight in the climax, get his own suit, or do something cool. I don't know. This subplot really doesn't add anything to the overall story, with it mainly just telling you that the government will bomb Wakanda, but they actually never bring this up. It's never important in the story. It's literally pointless. For a 3-hour movie, they really could have shortened it by just cutting this entire plot altogether. They could have brought him back, but they really didn't need this part. My biggest problem with the entire movie by a landslide is easily the climax. As stated before, this movie's 3 hours, which is quite long for an MCU movie. The CIA subplot is definitely a good example of this, but an even better example of this is the climax. It's sometimes alright for some parts, it has some decent action, but the general's suit looks really stupid, and I don't know why they included it in the movie. Like the general said, it looks really dumb. So while the climax is going on, Namor and Shuri battle it out, and we get some good character development from her. But man, this goes on for so long, and it's so annoying and boring. This climax had no reason to be this long because they dragged it out for so long, and it's so tedious to watch. Especially since a lot of things before, like the CIA plot, don't come into, like, they don't end up becoming important in the climax, which just makes the climax even worse. Obviously, after this, the movie is still good. The post-credit scene is great. The ending is great, but man, this climax is just too long. So, in conclusion, I think Wakanda Forever was really good, and I don't understand the hate around it in the slightest. It's an emotional, great way to respect Chadwick, and a very solid movie all around. Sure, it has pacing issues, and sometimes it can be boring, but overall, I'm going to give this one a 7 out of 10, and I'm putting it on the MCU list at number 16. Wakanda Forever, and this is an epic outro.